I like staying home. I always have. After a long shift, after a hard week, after basically anything, honestly. I'd rather be at home than out there. For a long time, I told myself that that was just who I am, that I'm just wired for quiet. I don't need a crowd. And I was right, and I was wrong. This video is about knowing the difference because for a lot of people, it's not obvious from the inside, and the cost of getting it wrong is higher than most people are willing to say out loud. There's a version of this conversation that goes, homebodies aren't broken, they're just wired differently. Isn't that great? And here are 5 reasons to be proud of yourself. That's not this video. Not because that's wrong, because it's just incomplete. An incomplete truth, especially for those who have already been through something real, is just a comfortable lie with better lighting. Here's what I've learned and what I've watched happen to people I respect. People who are good at their jobs, people who are holding it together for everyone else. The same preference for being home that was a genuine strength slowly became the wall separating them from everything that mattered. Preferring to be home is not the problem. Losing the ability to choose anything else, that's the problem. And most people don't see it until they're already deep in it. So let's start with what's actually true. If you're someone who drains in crowds and fills back up in your own space, there's a legitimate biological reason for that. Your nervous system is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was trained to do, especially for first responders, veterans, anyone who's spending significant time in high alert environments or who have been subject to prolonged stress, trauma, or just survival mode in general. Your nervous system has been processing threat at an elevated level for a long time. It takes in more than it lets on. When you walk into a loud, chaotic social environment after carrying all that, your brain is just not relaxing. It is working. Going home and closing the door is just not weakness. It's recovery. And for a lot of people in this space, it's one of the only places where the nervous system actually gets come down. I lived this almost every day. I understand. That's not just preference, though. That's regulation, and it deserves to be respected, not explained away. Second thing, preferring solitude is not the same as being antisocial, afraid, or broken. Some of the most grounded people I've ever known would rather sit in silence on a back porch than fight for a space at a crowded event. That's not a deficit. That is clarity about what you actually need. The world that profits off of constant movement and constant connection has a financial interest in making stillness feel like a problem. It's not the problem. The problem is something entirely different. Here's where it gets honest. There's a difference between solitude and isolation. And the difference is not about how much time you spend at home. It's about why. Solitude is chosen. It is intentional. You come home to refuel, to reprocess, to build something internally that requires quiet. And when you're done, you can come back. You're still present for the people who need you. The door opens from the inside. Isolation is different. Isolation happens when the walls go up, not because you're resting, but because you're avoiding. Avoiding conflict, avoiding accountability, avoiding people who can actually see what's going on with you. And here's what makes it hard. Isolation wears the same clothes as solitude. It feels the same from the inside. Your home is quiet. You're telling yourself you're fine. I'll tell you exactly where I am with this right now. I have an invitation for an upcoming 4-day retreat, veterans and first responders only, surrounded by people I don't know, in an environment I didn't design for 4 straight days. My default response to this invitation was not necessarily excitement. My default was to find a reason to stay home. That's honest. I like my space. I function better in quiet. I know how to be alone, and I am generally comfortable there. But here's what I also know. Comfortable is not the same as responsible. And total isolation, even when it feels like rest, even when it feels like exactly what I need, is not responsibility. It is not part of becoming. It is the comfortable version of staying stuck. So I'm going. Not because it's easy, because it's necessary, because the framework I teach requires me to actually live it, not just talk about it. Responsibility is truth in motion. And the truth is, I need what that room has to offer, even when my instinct is to skip it. I've watched this pattern in people who would never call themselves isolated, people who handled everything for years under pressure for everyone else, and they were disappearing quietly, telling themselves they were fine. And that is not necessarily a character flaw. That is a wound that never got addressed. And isolation is just the symptom that shows up first. So here's the question, and I want you to sit with it honestly. Are you choosing solitude, or is solitude choosing you? That's the whole thing. Choosing means you can stop. It means when something matters, when someone matters, you show up. The door opens from the inside. When solitude is choosing you, the door only opens from the outside. Someone has to come get you, and eventually they stop coming. This is where truth does the hard work. Not the comfortable version, the seeing clearly version. Truth is what you actually face, not what you prefer to believe about yourself. And facing it honestly doesn't mean you failed. It means you're still paying attention. You're still in the game. The reason I can say that clearly is because I'm in it right now. Choosing to go to this retreat, even when everything in me just says stay home, that's not a small thing for me. That's responsibility. That's the daily build. One choice at a time in the direction of who you are becoming, even when the other option is quieter and more comfortable sometimes. Here's how to tell the difference in real time. Healthy solitude has an output. You come back clearer, more present, more available for the people who need you. Time alone costs something and gives something back. If you're coming back from your alone time still checked out, still behind the wall, still running the same loop, that's data. Don't explain it away. It's telling you something. Second thing, isolation's most effective weapon is the story that you don't need to tell anyone. Most people who are struggling in silence have told themselves some version of, I'm good, I just need space. And they've repeated it long enough that they believe it. You were not built for indefinite isolation. Nobody is. The people most drawn to this type of quiet, survivors, first responders, veterans, people who've been carrying things alone for a long time, often have the most capacity for solitude. That capacity is real. It's also not infinite, and it is not a substitute for connection. And I'm walking into a room of strangers in the near future because I know that. Not because it's comfortable, because becoming requires it. The version of yourself you're working toward needs people around you who can see it happening. It needs someone in your life who can say, I see where you are, and I see where you're going, and you're not done. That's why we're doing Tribe Hope. The link is in the description. You don't have to walk in the front door loud, but the door is open regardless of where you're starting from. Here's where I'll land. Preferring to be home is not a flaw. For a lot of us, it's wisdom, hard-won wisdom about what we need to stay functional and stay healthy. But the line is real, and crossing it quietly without anyone naming it, without you naming it, is a cost most people don't realize they're paying until they've already paid too much. One question to carry out of here. Are you choosing this, or has it been choosing you? If you're not sure, that uncertainty is worth sitting with. That's truth doing its job. If this landed, share it with someone who needed to hear it. Subscribe if you want more content built for people who are actually doing the work.